Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every month we pick a new topic in cinema to explore and talk about. And this month we're talking about Humphrey Bogart. And this week we're watching
The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And welcome to the Film Club. So, The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Yes.
I really like this movie. I think it's very, very good. And this is your first time seeing it, right?
In its entirety, yes.
How much did you know about it before coming into it?
That there was treasure, Bogart, and the desert.
That was it? You didn't know, like, the ending or anything?
No, I didn't know the ending. The times I've seen it have been everything leading up to them actually leaving to go search for the gold.
Oh, so you've only ever seen, like, the first act?
Yeah.
I guess that's the line we're going on here. What did you think about it? You know, your first time watching it in full. What did you think?
I thought it was a really good movie for being a 2-hour movie, because most of the movies we've watched have been close to the 2-hour mark, but not quite. This one passes it. It's really good, pacing-wise. It has a good pace. It keeps you, engaged with the movie. You don't feel like, oh, okay, they're kind of just lulling here. It's pretty much action from beginning to ending.
Do you think movies have to earn their runtime if they're over 90 minutes? Because honestly, I think 2 hours is a pretty average movie length. For most, most movies I watch are long as hell.
No, I know. That's why I kind of make a point of it. Because for most of you guys, you don't know that Dean loves long movies. Especially if there's nothing going on in them. He'll just sit there for hours and watch nothing.
Nuh-uh.
And,
I mean, okay, there's a few movies like that I've watched before.
Yeah, so I'm never too sure what I'm walking into when I see the runtime on a Dean movie. But yeah, for this one, it works because you kind of have to really explain the story. There's nothing in there that I thought this could have been cut. No, I feel like everything worked in this movie.
Really true, because so much of this movie's runtime is in its foreshadowing, in how it's telling its story. So much of the dialogue repeats itself and comes back around. The movie really echoes throughout itself.
It also does expansion on the universe that it's in. It's not just our protagonists. It's, people that they encounter, people that are related to people that we meet in this movie. So it feels like we're in this universe, and
also
it's sad.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad movie. But the other thing about expanding the universe is, for 1947, it has to kind of explain the concept of rural Mexico to its audience. Because this was a Hollywood production, but it was actually filmed in Mexico, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it was shot in Mexico, and it was filmed in Arizona, California, Warner Brothers, obviously. But it's the first American film to predominantly be filmed in another country.
We talked about that with African Queen last week.
Yeah.
Where John Huston really was pushing for exotic location shooting.
Yeah.
And that was just not a thing in most American movies, if any. He was really at the forefront of doing that.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of makes Huston cool, is that he really pushes the envelope by, we could set up a set, but nothing beats, being out on location and feeling like, you're out there in that mountain range just looking for gold, and there's nothing else around you.
You know what? I want to talk about John Huston as a director, but let me tell everyone what the movie's about. The back of the box synopsis.
Please.
For one of the most famous plots in cinema.
Yes.
Because there's gold in them there hills, as avarice is in the heart of men. That's on the back of the box, everyone. I'm feeling good about that one. Good puns. But two hard-luck drifters and a grizzled prospector discover gold. And then greed and paranoia sets in. And soon, they must decide what is more important, the gold or their lives. And that's basically it. It's the standard thing of three guys go into business together.
Yeah.
And because of the money they're making, they all start second-guessing each other. They all think the other one's going to steal their money. And Bogart is at the centerpiece of this, going absolutely insane.
And we have a happy prospector dance.
We do. It's the first happy prospector dance.
I wasn't expecting it, but he did such a good jig that I was kind of like, I kind of like this.
That was improvised. Walter Huston there, really showing up.
Father of
John Huston.
Yeah.
And let's talk about John Huston real quick. Because what do you know about John Huston, the director?
Not too much. I didn't know that I've seen a good amount of his movies.
He was one of those classic Hollywood directors that just made 80 fucking movies that
Yeah, because I mean, it's not It's not like now where, you go into a movie and oh, okay, this is the director, and I follow them on Instagram, and I like this, and this is their filmography.
It's not like Tarantino, who brands every movie he makes it's a Tarantino joint,
Exactly. This is, golden age of Hollywood where you remember the movies, the actors, and not so much the directors.
Yeah.
So that's why it was kind of a shock. We're like, man, he's made a lot of movies that I enjoy.
The biggest thing about John Huston, at least to me, and this came up in the bonus episode we recorded for this month.
Yeah.
A little bit with Brandon, who, everybody gets to hear at the end of the month.
And Dylan.
But we talked about the difference between, like, Orson Welles. If Orson Welles decided to stay inside the studio system, like, if he decided to play ball after Magnificent Amberson's The Strangers, Touch of Evil, if he decided to play ball, what his career would look like.
Yeah.
And John Huston is really kind of that guy, because he has the same eye for detail. He's a very composed director. Famously, people said most directors are like machine guns. They just shoot everything.
Yeah.
Huston was a sniper. He would only shoot exactly what he needed. He also shot specifically for his films to be cut a specific way, so you couldn't, like, mess with them later. Like, the studios couldn't mess with them later.
Yeah.
And he really pushed the envelope for, like, what you can do in your stories, and it's like he almost invented the cinematic I can English.
You got this.
The cinematic anti-hero. And Humphrey Bogart is famous for playing these cinematic anti-heroes. Rick Blaine in Casablanca is basically an anti-hero, and here he is his most famous anti-hero.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because this is the Humphrey Bogart show.
Yeah.
And I do think John Huston directed him to his best performance here in Sierra Madre.
It's definitely a great performance. I know we had this argument a little bit before we recorded this, where you think that this is his best performance ever.
It's his deepest performance. I think it's the one that shows him with, like, the most range and him being able to go the most wild, I guess. I know you're a huge fan of Casablanca.
Oh, definitely. And Maltese Falcon. So it's like I usually stick to those two. But yeah, in this movie you see a lot of range. You see that he's just a normal guy, and you just see this descent into madness. And yeah, you're gonna end up getting yourself killed, and spoiler, he does.
Feels bad when we're spoiling a 70-year-old movie.
It's 75. In a few weeks it will be 76.
Oh, there you go. But that's the thing with the movie that is so interesting, because John Huston, he wrote the screenplay. It's based off of a novel by B. Travin, who no one knows who that person is.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this person either, but I was like, okay, very cool, based on a novel. I'm surprised you haven't read the novel.
I can't find it, to be honest. And also, like, I like the movie a lot, but I wouldn't really understand what the novels, like, would add to it, because I think this is a perfect movie. Again, like, out of the John Huston movies I've seen, this is probably my favorite, but a lot of the reason for that is our cast of characters, Yeah. We have Walter Huston, Humphrey Bogart, Tim Holt. And those three guys are kind of acting at a level that really doesn't show up until, like, the 60s. You know how we were talking about that last week, where Brando was signifying, hey, this is new acting, this is method, like, I am on another level than everybody else.
Yeah.
These are, like, just, like, over the horizon, like, guys, we can get really complicated and really dark. Not every big Hollywood guy has to be squeaky clean like Jimmy Stewart on screen.
It doesn't have to be a musical, doesn't have to, have a happy ending. It can be, a dark, serious movie, and people will come out to see it.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, who was it, Jack Warner, who did the financing and ran Warner Brothers?
Oh my god, he lost his shit on this movie. This movie was taking longer to make than it should have.
Yeah.
And since they were on location, it was that much more expensive. And that was kind of why I got pulled back into Warner Brothers, the studios, because they're like, you are in a foreign country where we are, financing this movie.
We have no control because we can't just send our fixers down to Mexico every day to check on dailies.
No. So it was a thing where he was just losing it. And eventually he had to pull the reins in and be like, okay, you've got to come back to either the States or to California and finish this off. And it's like, you feel like you're in Mexico in this movie. And I think that's kind of how it should feel. It shouldn't feel like, ooh, those are the mountains of Burbank. Or it's like, no, it's like, this needs to feel like you are out, looking for gold in the middle of the desert where you're not safe.
And that's the craziest thing about this movie, right? Because if you look at the scenery and how the movie looks and the locations they're at, John Huston made a point that when they were traveling to location, it was not the mountain just outside of town. They would go like miles out into like the desert, like out, like to the point where most of the time he was like, we're just gonna camp there because there's no way we're going back to town. That's like a 8-hour drive.
Oh yeah, I mean, they spent months location scouting for this movie, and I tried to, do all the locations just to list them off. I couldn't do it because there are so many locations that they shot this movie in Mexico. So you could see that they really traveled a lot through the country. And then even, here in the States, in California, different parts of our desert here. So this movie really was shot everywhere. But it feels like you're in just one big, vast desert.
That's the beauty of cinema, is piecing things together to create one idea.
And that's why I was saying, you feel the danger in this movie because you feel just like them, where you're out in the middle of nowhere and we're in the early 20s, or is this the early...
This is supposed to take place in February of 1925. That's when the movie starts, but John Huston was like, I'm not going to dress the sets, so the cars are from 1947. Yeah. It'll be fine, guys.
But,
I got Bogart on screen. No one's watching the background.
That's what I'm saying, the whole danger of feeling like, wow, I am isolated in this desert with no one to help me. Then I have people that might possibly kill me if the animals or the reptiles don't kill me first.
Yeah, like the environment feels dangerous.
That's why, kind of like the African Queen, where, when they're in love, it's beautiful. There's flowers and, sunshine, that kind of feeling. But we'd see the wild animals or, the leeches or whatever else is living in that water, crocodiles. And that's what we kind of get that same vibe in this movie, where you don't know where danger is necessarily going to strike, like with the mine collapsing partially.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting and kind of a great part about the movie, is how they build up that what they're doing isn't safe. It's not a good thing, and it's almost kind of selling out to the point of the I guess the point of the movie, how greed is, affects people, avarice, and these guys are trying to make a quick buck, quote unquote, and trying to like cheat the system. Like, we're just gonna go out and we're just gonna pick money up off the ground. And it's like the nature's is punishing them for doing that, That,
and you think nature's gonna be, one of the biggest things that they're gonna have to contend with in this movie, or the bandits, or other people that are there to possibly steal their gold. But really, the danger is Dobbs. Because they go in, we're partners, we're gonna go in this equally. I don't need that much money, I just need enough to, be happy for the rest of my life. I don't have to have millions of dollars. And then it's like, dude, your partner is trying to kill you for your earnings.
But I love that because we don't get Dobbs as a evil murderer until like pretty far into the film, like over like the half hour, or sorry, not the first half hour, the first half of the movie. Like after that hour mark, then he's like, oh no, now you're like dangerous because you were like very paranoid. He pulls a gun on Tim Holt's character, Curtain, I think around that point in the movie, because he thinks he's like found his stash. And it's really interesting how it goes, because it's a very methodical descent into his madness. And I love this, because near the end of the movie, he turns into fucking Gollum from Lord of the Rings, where he starts talking to himself. He's in the crouch position. He's like, my precious, yes, the gold. He turns into Gollum.
That's the vibe I got, too.
And it doesn't help that Humphrey Bogart, when he doesn't shave and he's got that wild hair, he looks like some sort of prehistoric man-ape thing.
I mean, it's so weird to see him kind of in that crazed, manic state. But speaking of hair, did you know that was a wig?
Was that a wig? I didn't want to say anything, but it looked weird.
Yeah, so I didn't know this at all about Humphrey Bogart, but when I was doing the research for this movie, apparently he was taking this medication to help him and Lauren Bacall have a baby. So he was trying to like up his fertility.
Up his juice.
Yeah, so apparently this medication made him lose his hair. So by the time that he got to, making this movie, I guess a lot of his hair was gone. So they had to fashion a wig for him in the movie. And I kept looking at it. I thought it looked okay.
Honestly, it does look pretty good. And that's the thing about a lot of this movie. Everything looks pretty good. Like, our actors look the part.
I mean, they look like they've been out in the mountains for months, just completely dirty from, digging in the mines and just no way to really clean up.
I heard a director talk about this where 90% of your movie is in the casting.
Yeah.
And 90% of acting is in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And Humphrey Bogart has the face of a guy who's just lived a tough life.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like the kind of guy that's slept outside. Yeah. And then you have Tim Holt, who looks like a guy who, nice, boyish, kind of good-looking dude, but he looks like somebody who's beaten down and had a rough go. And then Walter Houston just looks like somebody going insane looking for gold in the desert.
I mean, I loved Walter Houston. The fact that he was like, yeah, I've done this for years and I'll teach you guys how to do it. And this man is just running up the mountain and the two younger guys are just like, this man's half goat. I don't know how he's doing it. And I love that we have this wiser, older character in this movie that's like...
Well, wiser is a stretch.
Well, wise in the sense that he knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And he tells them, you guys think you know what you're doing because you read this in a magazine. I've lived this, and trust me. And, I'm going to give you what this magazine hasn't given you. So it's
Which is experience.
Exactly. So it's I love seeing that shift in the three characters where Howard is just, kind of having a good time. He's like, oh yeah, make sure you eat your beans before you go to sleep. And they're dead tired. He's like, guys, it's time to eat dinner, boys. Then they're just completely passed out. And
he turns into the father role.
Yeah, so it's I love seeing him where, this has been his life and his body knows what to do. And he's just kind of like, I'm having a good time. And these two young guys are just like, I can't handle. And you just see the mental deterioration of these two men.
Yeah,
because Howard is pretty strong throughout the entire movie.
See, I think that's a big part of the movie that we kind of want to talk about is how these three guys change, their arcs throughout the movie. Because Dobbs is the most serious one.
Yeah, he
goes from being down on his luck, he's kind of like a smarmy guy. He's not the nicest, most lovable dude. He's bad with money. We see that's the whole opening, and then he turns into an absolute madman at the end. But Curtain, he starts out as a good hard day's pay for a good hard day's work kind of guy, and near the middle of the movie when the cave-in happens, he's like, I can just leave Dobbs in there. Me and Howard can split the money.
That's why I love that scene where he just kind of stops walking up to the mine, and you see that thought go across his brain well, it was an accident. I was over here, he's in the mine. Well, I guess the two of us should just leave with what we've gotten so far.
And then he goes in and saves Dobbs, which is another thing where so often Dobbs is like, what have you done for me, Curtain? If it weren't for me, we wouldn't be out here. And I'm like, he saved your life at least on 2 separate occasions in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's on the same track as Dobbs. The only difference is Curtain actually has some moral character, whereas Dobbs is purely materialistic. And Howard's almost so removed from it that he doesn't, I don't even think he really cares about the gold. I think he just wants company. I think he's just lonely.
Yeah, because the first time we see him is in the flop house. I was trying to think of the name of it.
YMCA?
Something like that, yeah. But he's in there and, Dobbs and Curtain just look completely out of their luck. Granted, they were just in a bar fight,
Great bar fight, by the way.
That took 4 days to film, I believe.
We'll talk about that after Howard, but I do want to talk about the bar fight.
Yeah. So we see them coming into, basically this motel, just looking completely broken and disheveled. And there's Walter just talking to everybody, big old smile on his face, this is a great night. I'm having a good time speaking to anybody that I can talk to.
He loves the attention. He's like, come on, boys, come around. It's been so long since we sat around a campfire, had some beans, and told tall tales.
Yeah, so we never see that shift in his character of, him going to the dark side. Walter always maintains.
I don't think he's ever crosses over to the dark side, but when the Cody character comes in and he's like, well, I'm kind of indifferent. We can shoot him or not. I don't particularly care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
I mean, he invites him to dinner.
Yeah, it's almost a thing where Howard understands what gold can do to a man's soul, and he's seen it happen before, and he's like, you know, maybe this is one of the good times. Maybe this is one of the best case scenarios. Because I feel like at one point Howard was in the Curtain position, or Howard was in the Dobbs position. Like, it seems like he's seen this play out, and he's like the Pied Piper calling them along to go, you know, relive this trauma again. And he's like, can I get one good one out of this?
Mm-hmm. And that's what we get when we have the tent scene, when they keep going out to check, and one will come back and he's like, oh yeah, I said he needed to step out and take a walk, and the other one gets all paranoid and goes running out there, and, well, where did he go? Oh, he heard you were taking a walk, so he wanted to go look for something, and just kind of pitting them against each other a little bit.
Howard's like, I'm not gonna kill any of you guys, I don't think I'm gonna ever do that, but if you kill the other one, I'll side with the last guy standing, I don't mind.
Or, you know, if you get into a fist fight, that might be entertaining for a little bit.
And that brings us to the fist fight in the movie, which John Huston in Treasure Sierra Madre, because I said this about African Queen where it didn't feel like there was a lot of action in it, but this one, there's a lot of action in it. Where that bar fight at the beginning, because what happens is Dobbs and Curtain, they get screwed out of a pay, right? They go out and they work in like the hot desert at an oil rig for, I don't know, like 6 weeks or something. Yeah. And they come back and the guy stiffs them on the pay, and then they find him in this bar and they beat the shit out of him. And it is a knockdown, drag out fight that looks like it was choreographed by guys who have been in bar fights before.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just them, you know, beating the crap out of this guy. This guy puts up a fight, too, so everybody is getting their plate cleaned in this movie.
I love that fight so much, because it's not like... I think Jackie Chan said this. I'm going to keep name-dropping people. Jackie Chan said this where he hates American movies because it looks like none of these guys can actually fight or throw a real punch. And you can kind of see that. A lot of the Marvel movies, you can tell that some of the actors are not martial artists. They're not people who can, like, beat a dude up. You know? But in this, it's like, you know, Humphrey Bogart's fucking 5'0", but I believe he could drop a dude in a bar fight.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the two of them working together as a team where Dobbs is on the floor holding onto this guy's feet while Curtin, you know, hits the face, hits the body. Yeah, so it feels like a real fight. I mean, I love that they get the money. They don't take all his money. They take what they're owed, throws the rest of the money back onto the guy, and then gives the money to some of the barkeeper for the mess that they made.
Which is weird, because, you know, the whole theme of the movie is this greed, is this avarice. And Dobbs' whole character is, man, I'm so down on my luck. I just want to be somebody. I want money. I don't care how I get it. I just don't want to be poor anymore. Yeah. Why do you think he only takes what he's owed and not everything?
Because he still has his, I guess, his morals. His conscience is still there, where it's like, yeah, you know, I worked this job for 6 weeks, but all those other guys also work too, so... maybe with the rest of the money and after this ass kicking, he's gonna go and pay some of these other guys?
Maybe. I think it has something to do with maybe some of the theming-ish of the movie, because he does that while he's, like, in town, in, like, civilization, and we see him go mad when civilization's kind of taken away, when he's in the wilderness. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we are only moral-ish people when we have society constructing how we should act, but when we're out in the wild, out in the wilderness, yeah, you know, we'll kill people for just sand in the ground. Like, that seems totally reasonable.
It's your lizard brain, where, you know, it takes over and it's just, yeah, this person's gonna do harm to me by taking what's mine. Of course, kill him. And it's just like, no, you don't. And it's like, no one's trying to mess with you, but that's just, you know, how bad his paranoia is. Where it's like, I can sleep less than you can. I'll be awake all night. I'll be awake for days. And it's just like...
yes.
It's like, for what? What does that purpose serve?
So when Curtin falls asleep, he can take the gun and he can take the gold.
And it's like, your plan doesn't work.
It does. It works out for Dobbs. Well,
it doesn't work out for Dobbs too much.
Okay, it works out for him about the sleeping thing, but it doesn't work out later.
Even Curtain, with no sleep, was still like, I was still able to see you behind that tree ready to get me. I'm that tired, but not that tired. Which, they felt like two little boys, where it's like, I'm gonna get you, no, I saw you, not it.
I think that's kind of the point of the movie, is they're two kids out playing, prospector, and the greed sets in, and they're not men anymore. They're not, good moralistic men. They're acting like children.
Yeah. Where it's, why should we share when I could have all? And it's just like, why do you need all when you didn't need all when we first started this?
I mean, that's a lot of fucking money. That's probably why.
Yeah.
I mentioned this like way, way earlier, but I did want to come back around to it. Because did you find it weird of a movie this era that has 0 female characters? Not even like a love interest somewhere?
No, I mean, it didn't catch me off guard. I mean, it's not something that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. But it just feels kind of like the African Queen, where the movie's centered on these 2 characters. It feels like in this movie, the movie's centered around these 3 men. Yeah. Even though we see a lot more people in this movie. Because we have, the bandits, and we have people that are living in the town.
No. The banditos.
The banditos, yes. So
you make fun of me for pronouncing tortillas wrong,
You do pronounce it wrong. But, yeah, so it's a thing where we have that much more people in this movie, because it's just so many different locations that people, are in, because, they have to buy the donkeys, and, they're traveling into town, but it still feels like it's just the 3 of them in this universe.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason I, say it's like, oh, why are there no women in this movie? That's kind of a weird thing, is there are 3, poor men out in the middle of the desert, and it's like, what are you gonna do with your money? And I'm waiting for Dobbs to say, so the whorehouse on 5th Street. I'm just waiting for that, because that feels like a modern take that you have, right? Like, that's a modernistic reading.
I mean, even his reasoning, where he wants to buy cigars, light them with $100 bills, and go to a restaurant and send the food back even though it's perfect. That sounds like something that you would hear today.
He wants to be showy. He wants to be ballin', right?
Yeah, he doesn't want to be like Curtin, who he had this experience growing up of working on, I guess, like maybe an orchard reserve.
It was a peach plantation.
A peach plantation where everyone was happy, and it was kind of like a family setting. And you see that he's like, yeah, I want to buy property, and I want to grow peaches, and I just want to, harvest the fruit and just live a normal life.
He wants to use money to capture a memory, right? And I think that's interesting. All 3 of them want to use the money differently.
Yeah.
Dobbs wants to use it to like show off and status. Howard wants to use it for comfort, basically. Yeah. And Curtin wants to use it for, recapturing a memory, recapturing something that money can't buy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like each one of them is showing that, well, if you get the money, you're just going to blow it all trying to get something you can't actually have. I mean, Howard's kind of the closest to being realistic, but he finds it without having to spend a dime.
Yeah, and Curtin, when we finally talk about the Cody character, he wants to, all of them, give some of their money to Cody's wife. And it's just showing, the character of Curtin. And Dobbs is very, fuck people, more money for me.
He's greedy.
Yeah.
And do we want to talk about the Cody character? Because he's a weird character, because he just comes in to die.
Yeah. But I felt the most sad about his character. I think that was I thought Bogart, going from good to evil in the movie was going to be my saddest thing I took away. Cody's character was the saddest for me. And I wasn't expecting it.
Oh, really?
No.
Because the Cody character, he's another one of these prospector guys, but he stumbles upon these 3 and is like, hey guys, you can kill me, send me on my way, cut me in on the stake.
Well, actually, he stumbles upon Curtin when Curtin goes into town to get more supplies. Mm-hmm. And I guess he kind of recognizes, oh, hey, this would be, the stuff that you need when you're prospecting. And he follows him out there, which that was another thing in the movie that got me. Because it's scary to be out there alone and during this time where there's just no lights and people are so spread out. But just the way that people pop up in the middle of the night near your campground, like, holy shit, just somebody just standing there watching you all of a sudden.
I think that's another thing, is it adds on to why these guys are so paranoid.
Yeah.
Because not only, because you hear, like, the wild jungle cats or whatever, at least that's what they call them.
The tigers.
Yeah, the tigers, and roaming the mountains of Mexico.
Yeah, I'm like, I've never heard that before, but okay.
It's probably mountain lions or whatever.
Oh, mountain lions, yeah, but a tiger?
You're imagining like a Bengal tiger.
Oh, yeah.
With like the orange and black stripes.
Yeah, I'm imagining like a tiger, and I'm like, in Mexico? I don't know. Like
they have big cats in Mexico.
I mean, I think I saw a news story here in California, or it was Vegas, where someone got attacked by a baby tiger that they had illegally purchased. And I was just like...
And you can purchase a tiger legally in America for like $2,000. Which reminds me.
Don't do that.
No, do that. We live in the greatest country on the planet.
No.
Buy your tiger.
No.
Only $2,000. I know a guy.
No, tigers do not need to be domestically owned. They do not.
They look adorable.
No, they are beautiful animals, but no, they do not need to be owned in a regular home.
So, after you buy your tiger and watch Treasures of Sierra Madre, the thing is fuck, I lost my place. We're talking about sick-ass tigers.
Okay, so we were talking about, people showing up in the desert.
Yeah, people showing up in the desert. Because that's the thing. The part about the movie that so gets me with these guys is why they're so paranoid, and it's because it's justified.
Yeah.
Like, there's bandits on the loose. Like, the bandits run up on them, and they are so paranoid because if anybody finds out where they are and what they're doing, all that person has to do is just tell anybody in town, and either a bunch of people are coming up and taking their claim, or the federales are coming and kicking them off the land because that's not your land.
Yeah.
And then they just suddenly appear out of the darkness. The bandits just appear, across the desert, and they get into the shootout. And
Cody just appears in the middle of the night.
And he's like, he appears out in the middle of the night, and the first thing he's doing is like, hey guys, so you know exactly why I'm here. I'm here for your money. Now, we could amicably come to an agreement where I don't tell anybody about this, and I get some money. And I love how Dobbs' first thought, Bogart's first thought, is, so guys, if we all shoot him dead, none of us can be blamed, right? It's like those firing squads, right? None of us knows which bullet killed him, right? I just love that that's his immediate thought process.
That's his thought process the rest of this movie.
After that, you're like, that's where he tilts over to being evil.
Yeah, because I mean, we're really idling that line, and once we get to the Cody part where he's just ready to kill, it's like, okay. It's like, we're not coming back from this. You are very much over the edge now. What is going to happen? And then that's when we get the bandits the next day or the next morning that show up looking for weapons.
And they're like, hey, who are you? And they're like, we're the federales. And it gets to the greatest line of the movie.
And I didn't know that line was from this movie.
Oh, really?
No, so when I heard it, I was like, I love this line. I didn't know where it was from, but it's just,
What's the line?
Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
It's a good line.
It's a good, great line.
Good line. Also, Johnny Houston got in trouble, I guess, with like the production code of Warner or whatever, because they trimmed out the rest of that line, because apparently he starts cussing at them in Spanish. I think he calls them like a cabron madre, some bullshit.
That's okay. Yeah, I can see why that was cut out of the movie. We don't need to go there, but yeah, that's a great line. Didn't know it was from this movie.
Because the movie is like, I think it's reached the point where it's iconic to the point of just, a lot about the movie without seeing it.
Yeah.
Because this story has been repeated in, like, The Simpsons, in, like, Family Guy, in basically every TV sitcom.
So, do you remember last week when we finished recording The African Queen, and we were talking about Looney Tunes?
Yes.
And we were talking about that great Looney Tune episode where it's all the big stars of Hollywood, and they're just, drawn in the Looney Tune way.
Yeah, because Looney Tunes was kind of famous for throwing in old classic Hollywood actors as like parodies of themselves and stuff.
So I thought it was interesting and kind of coinciding with what you're saying, because there was a Warner Brothers animated short called 8-Ball Bunny, where basically they're playing out the plot of Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Doesn't Humphrey Bogart cameo in that?
Bugs Bunny has, encounters with Dobbs. So it's just this thing where they're, I guess, fighting out over like 2 coins, and I guess the American tourist in this is played by John Huston. So, like, we gotta watch this afterwards.
That'll be the bonus episode of the month, boys. Looney Tunes, but
classic Looney Tunes.
But that's the thing about the movie that's really good. Like I really like this movie because it's just so much of I guess like the human condition, greed. It's a very basic thing, but it's a very compact analysis of the very human condition of greed, avarice, betrayal, friendship, and like survival. You know, it's a very full movie.
Yeah, it is, and it's just interesting, to see the people that it's inspired. I read somewhere that it was Sam Raimi's favorite movie.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It's one of Stanley Kubrick's favorite movies.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And like last week, you were saying that you thought that Indiana Jones was based off of Charlie Allnut from The African Queen.
Well, I said Indiana Jones or African Queen I thought was gonna be like Indiana Jones, and it was not.
Okay, well, in this movie, Steven Spielberg has cited that Dobbs is the main inspiration for Indiana Jones.
I mean, the look, yeah, I can see that.
The look, yeah, the adventurer, just, Indy's good. Indy doesn't go evil.
But with Treasure of the Sierra Madre, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, we should talk about its Oscars, because...
Oh, yeah, because this thing had, like, a solid Oscar run.
Yeah, it was nominated for 4 Oscars. It won 3 of them. And it also kind of created history where a father and son won Oscars at the same show.
That's like the only time that's happened, right? I can't think of any other one that would do it.
The only one I could think of would be like the Brolins, but I don't know if they've done it in the same show.
That's true.
But yeah, so Best Supporting Actor was won by Walter Huston. Best Director and Best Screenplay was given to John Huston.
Just had to get 2 out of the gate on like his 5th movie.
Oh yeah,
it's just what you do.
But I loved that, reading about the movie and the making of the movie, that the Hustons enjoyed working together so much that it was just John Huston said it was like one of the greatest moments in his life. Winning the Oscar for doing a film with his dad, and his dad was kind of like, I had so much fun doing this with you. I think we need to shoot a movie every year together, and they were so game. And unfortunately, Walter Huston passed away that next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Is this like his last performance?
I don't think it's his last. There might be another movie, but this is his last performance with his son.
Wow, that's gotta be a weight. Granted, John Huston, it's sad he lost his dad, but it's gotta feel good, because it was his dad's only Oscar win. They got to do it together. I would say it's probably his dad's best performance.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I wanted to talk about it because there's the one Oscar they didn't win, and you look at it and it was nominated for 4 of them. Screenplay, actor, director, best picture, and Hamlet won out of it. Mm-hmm. But how do you think this could have won best picture now, or is this a movie that's okay? You think definitely?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's anything problematic with it now. There's also a thing where, it's not like it's stuck in the 40s. I think if you were to show this or screen this now, people are able to comprehend to it. It's not like, where we see old comedies and we watch them now and it's like, well, no one's really going to understand that reference if they know history or movie history. Mm-hmm. I think this is easy enough to follow and understand, basically the rise and fall of a character. Like what we get with Dobbs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this would work now. And I think if it hit the Oscars now...
It would have a run?
Yeah, it would definitely have a run.
Because I know a lot of movies now, like you've mentioned this before, where the best picture months in advance. The one that's going to win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have that with the Globes, even though the Globes have been around just as long as the Oscars. But you see it at the Golden Globes. Okay, this movie completely sweeped. And once we get to Oscar season, that movie's probably going to sweep, and it's kind of surprising when some movies don't. Mm-hmm. But it's more common now that we see a picture take home everything. And I think maybe back then that wasn't too much of a thing yet.
It's hard to say movies now, we get more... I don't think movies get more sweeps now. Usually you get a movie that gets, 4 Oscars, like 5 Oscars. That's a lot of fucking Oscars. But I feel movies back then, especially around this time, the movie that got like Best Picture was the one that was the safest, that fell in line with everything.
It's Shakespeare.
Yeah, this Hamlet won this year, so it was Shakespeare, right? It's Olivier. It probably was a big production. It's probably a beautiful movie. Treasure of the Sierra Madre has just stood the test of time as one of the greatest films of all time.
And from what I saw in there, it looked like Hamlet was also done by Warner Brothers, so the studio was good either way.
Yeah, and the other thing is Jack Warner was probably like, fuck you, Houston, you're already getting two, I ain't giving you another one.
Possibly.
But, what else do we want to talk about? The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Okay, so I've got 2 fun trivia facts.
Okay, this is the booze trivia moment.
We do. So, we know the scene where Dobbs lifts up the rock, and then there's that venomous,
the Gila monster, I think is what they call
it.
Oh
my god, that thing terrified me when I saw it, because...
Oh, that's right, you don't like lizards.
I like the cute little lizards, but, you know...
the cute little lizards, like the ones that are the size of your palm, not the ones where you gotta wrangle them a little bit.
Yeah, one that could eat me, not so much. So apparently, John Huston played a prank on Bogart during this. So they have the scene where he goes and he lifts the rock, and you get that expression from him where he's just completely terrified of what he's seeing. So apparently, John Huston had put a rat trap underneath it, so when Bogart went to move the rock, it caught his finger and scared the crap out of him. So
I've snapped rat traps on my fingers before. That is not a fun experience.
It's not, and especially when you're not expecting it and you're just, I'm acting, I'm lifting this rock to, so I can give my scared,
performance.
My scared performance, yeah, and then, no, I get my finger snapped by a mousetrap. Yeah, I'm gonna panic a little bit. So it was kind of cool to see that they did have fun on the set. They did, do some pranks with each other, because what else are you gonna do in the middle of the desert?
Well, that's the thing about John Huston, because I think a lot of people have this idea that to be a director, you have to be kind of an asshole, and you have to be like Stanley Kubrick, where you do 1,000 takes of everything because you have something so perfect in your head.
Yeah.
You need to make your actors are tools to get you there.
Yeah, or, it's a thing where I'm a director and you're actors. I tell you what to do and we don't really mesh together. We don't hang out together.
Yeah, but that's, like, very wrong. Like, John Huston, he's very jokey on set. He's very, like, apparently very, like, personable with a lot of the actors he worked with. Most of the actors he worked with really enjoyed working with him because he got them to great performances. And also, the whole Kubrick myth of making you do 1,000 takes because you're not doing it right because he's a perfectionist. No, he's making people do 1,000 takes because he doesn't know what he wants until he sees it.
Right.
And he wants you as the actor to kind of work, like do stuff, make play, act.
I could kind of tie that into with like being a photographer. I can have an idea in my head and I can get my model there and I could shoot it and it doesn't tee up to the idea that I had. And then you just kind of have to work with the model, get them to move and get them to do other things. And then you get this beautiful shot that you could have never imagined.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, because John Huston knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
He's, again, they called him like the sniper, He only got the shots he absolutely needed.
Exactly.
So it's just interesting to see how Huston kind of worked as a director and how, like this, he was very jokey on set.
Yeah.
He tried to make everybody, kind of have a good time, even though they were in the middle of the desert and probably had to sleep on the floor that night.
Or in those cool old trailers.
Or the cool old trailers. But you had one more trivia fact for us.
I do. I have one more boo fact, and it is about John Huston.
Oh, nice.
So apparently, one night while they were filming, they had a doctor assigned to their unit out there because you never know if someone's going to get bit by a bug or someone gets sick, kind of like all the things that happened with the African Queen where everyone got sick. Ooh. So apparently one night, he decided to smoke weed with his dad.
Of course.
Because, out in the desert.
It's kind of what you do.
You and your dad are buddies, I guess. Let's try this. So apparently, the doctor had to come out and calm him down because he had a bad reaction to the weed. So after that, I guess he vowed he was never going to smoke it again. So it's like, can you imagine John Huston in the 40s out there in the middle of the night smoking weed and freaking out?
John Huston, that was probably a dangerous situation. He probably had a gun on him. He's like, they're coming from the trees, boys. The pink elephants are after me. He starts blasting off into the night.
Yeah.
That was a fun fact.
Yeah, I thought that would be a good one to end the episode on.
And now that we're ending the episode, your final thoughts on Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Is it a treasure? Is this movie gold?
It was a treasure. And not that big, fool's gold that they thought they found in the beginning, the big rock,
Like real gold.
Yeah, this was real gold. It was that fine, pretty powder.
It's like that sandy stuff that doesn't show up in black and white.
It doesn't. It just looks like more sand. And that was the heartbreaking part of the movie where Dobbs, when he's being killed, they go and they cut open the sacks with the gold in it, and it just falls into the sand, and you're just like, oh my god.
And when Howard and Curtin are riding in the sandstorms coming in, and they're being blasted by the cold, but it doesn't matter, because it's all meaningless, man.
It's meaningless, and you have to laugh because it's been returned to the earth from where they took it. I mean, I love that part. But, yeah, 2 thumbs up from me. Really good movie. Would recommend.
I would also give this movie 2 thumbs up. I think I've gone on record many times in this episode that I really love this movie. Great big personal favorite. I really enjoy it. Would recommend it to anybody. I think this is, again, Bogart's best performance, in my opinion. It's my favorite John Huston directed film. Really love it. 2 big thumbs up. Go find it.
Yes. It's on HBO Max.
And what else is on HBO Max? Is it the next movie we're watching?
It's not. We're gonna have to dig for that movie. But it's a movie that we both haven't seen before.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I thought it would be the perfect way to end Bogart month with The Big Sleep.
The Big Sleep. Famous name? I don't know what happens in the movie.
It is a noir, and it stars Bogart and Bacall.
Ooh, fancy. I think this might be my first Bacall movie, too.
Really?
I think so. I'm gonna find out as soon as I see the lady, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so it should be a good time next week. But if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. We release slideshow versions, video versions, whatever you want to call them, on that channel of this very podcast. And soon we'll be releasing stuff that are a little bit more high production value, hopefully.
Yeah.
But like, comment, subscribe there. And if you wanted to follow us on social media, where can they go?
You can find us on Instagram at the Film Club Podcast, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, trivia, and our random adventures we go on.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.